Welcome. You're listening to The Aligned Self, Conversations in Creating a Conscious and Abundant Life. This is Daniel Denovi. I'll be your guide and host. Let's see just where we can take this. Hello, friend, and welcome back to the conversation. Have you ever gotten neck deep in a project only to realize that there's so much more to do and thinking that it was going to be relatively simple on the front end? Well, that was the podcast that I was working on for today's episode. It was on boundaries, personal boundaries. You know, those rules that we have in place that tell us where we end and others begin. It is the perimeter by which we allow things in our life and things that we exclude from our life, things we tolerate and things we don't tolerate. Well, the more I talked about it and the more I thought about it, I realized that I had much more than just one episode and more than just a two-parter. I had a whole series because it's so intimately tied into and interwoven into our self-concept, our self-identity, and then again, our relationship with others, how we allow them to interact with us, the behaviors that we accept, and how we train people to treat us. Well, anyways, I'm not going to go on and on about that. I just want to let you know that I'm tabling that idea, and I will definitely get into it in depth. I'm going to have to really organize my thoughts around it so I can give you something that has a lot of meat to it that you can actually implement into your life. But since I brought it up, I will leave you with a couple ideas. One is the idea that no can be a complete sentence. You can utter the word no thank you, that's not for me, and you don't have to explain yourself, you don't have to rationalize it. If you just don't feel like it's for you, you can say no and go your separate way. And the other boundary that goes hand in hand with that is that you do not owe anyone an explanation for anything that you do, not even your partner. Now, while you may have an intimate partner, and it's a courtesy to explain your behavior, it's not required. And then we're now going off into some complex ideas around establishing boundaries. So I just want to leave you with those two, and we'll definitely dive deeper down the road. And since I did table that topic, what am I going to talk about? Well, I'm going to talk about intuition and about decisions, choosing a path. Now, this has been something that has come up in a couple coaching conversations lately, and I forgot that this isn't readily available to everybody. And so in talking about it, in making it distinct, I thought you could utilize it in your life to activate your intuition. But first, I do need to say that a foundational belief or a foundational idea that underpins this whole concept is that you are not alone, that God got us all that is, the angels, the guides, they have your back. They surround you and support you. And with that said, when you have a choice, when you have a decision to be made, or you're thinking about your future and you think you have to figure it out, get the right answer, find the right path, make the right decision, don't make a mistake, because for one reason or another, where you currently are, it's not where you're supposed to be, not where you're supposed to stay. So what's the next step? And this may be hard for some of you because I do have a couple of clients where they like to have a regimented routine or at least a plan in place, and to fly by the seat of your pants, to make it up as you go, is unsettling to them. So I do understand there is a certain amount of trusting the universe involved in this. And so what I'm asking you to do is put aside your logical mind. And if you've realized that where you currently are isn't where you're going to stay, and you think that you have to figure it out, stop it. Just ask the question, I wonder what's next. And then you wait to be led. And you might ask, how do I know I'm being led? Well, you look for the signs. And if you need help identifying the signs, I suggest you go back to episode 70, which is entitled, Is This a Sign? But the short answer is a sign is an impulse, an urging, an idea that pops in your head that has illumination, like it's all lit up and it makes you feel good. It could be a series of numbers. It could be a book that falls at your feet. It could be a song you hear on the radio, and then you start putting the pieces together, and there's a synchronicity to all these things showing up. This is where you follow the breadcrumbs. This is how you're being led. And what's been interesting for me is in those 2 coaching conversations, it's almost as if a door has appeared that opens up into a hall or down a path, and they stand there looking at the door and say, hey, I think that door has something to do with my future. So my coaching is, when the door appears, go through it. To be led, you need to follow. So when something comes up with an idea pops in your head, go with it. Go down the rabbit hole. Investigate it. Get curious. Follow the impulse and then see what comes of it. Chances are there's going to be another synchronous event that pops up down the road or right around the corner as you go through the door or start investigating that idea. Now, as you investigate, understand that you're going to feel lit up. It's going to feel exciting. It's going to be interesting. And when you have that feeling that's there, that's confirmation that you're on the right path. You're picking up the breadcrumbs. If it feels like a struggle, if it feels like a dead end, if it feels like a heavy weight, then that's not for you. Back away, turn around, head back down another door. Now, I do have to admit, in recognizing the breadcrumbs, in recognizing the urgings, in recognizing the feelings, those little subtle emotions that come up, those sensations that guide you down your path, it takes a little bit of practice. As you feel them and follow them, and then you reflect on them, are they leading you to where you want to go? Or at least are they invigorating? Are they lighting things up? Or is it a struggle? Again, if it's a struggle, then you have to reassess on how that felt. Was it more your mind guiding you along the way, or was it really your heart? Now, when I say mind, I also mean your ego, that surface aspect of yourself. And when I refer to your heart, I refer to your inner self, your deeper self. And I made a decision a long time ago that I would never allow my head to overrule my heart ever again. Because frankly, it never ever worked out in the long run. And so really developing your intuition is learning to be led, learning to follow the breadcrumbs, learning to follow the impulses, the urgings, when they come up, as they come up, and honor them. And I just want to draw your attention to the fact that this was originally going to be a different podcast, a different topic, but it started feeling cumbersome. It started feeling awkward. And I realized that I wanted to put it aside, let it integrate and percolate in my head, and gather my thoughts. And I was going to do a whole series. And then the impulse was, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was led to talk about being led. Now, of course, you can practice this on your own. I've given you enough information for you to practice it on your own. But if you want a little guidance, I do teach this right inside my intuition course, and it's called the Intuition Course, and that's available in the Vault, my membership program, and there is a module right in there that teaches you how to tune in to your inner signals and distinguish between the subtle differences between a yes and a no, a left and a right. Now, also in all transparency, the Vault is a name that I just picked out of the air, and I don't think, I'm getting this feeling that it's not going to be the name down the road. So if you're not listening this in real time, like if you're listening to this a year after or 2 years after I published this, it might be called something else. But you can always go to yesdaniel.com, and there should be a link there to find your way. Follow the breadcrumbs. If you'd like an exercise to practice with, I'll leave you with this, and you can put this into action. Find some time where you can just indulge yourself. You're not committed to do anything or show up for anybody else. And while at first glance you might not have anything like that on your calendar, I mean, you might be looking at your calendar and think, I have no space in there whatsoever. I have commitments all over the place. Well, you are the one that made those commitments. So you have a lot more power, a lot more flexibility than you're giving yourself credit for. If you wanted to carve out some time just for you to really play with this idea, you can do it. And so the idea is to create some time where you're not committed. And then get curious and wonder about how you could spend this time that would be the most productive, most impactful, most beneficial to you. You could almost think of it as taking a mental health day. When I've done that in the past, I've been called to the park or been called to the nature trail. Sometimes I go and watch a movie by myself, all by my lonesome in the middle of the theater, sometimes on a Tuesday afternoon. And I have to tell you, there's nobody at the theater on Tuesday afternoon. There's been times when I've been the only one in the theater. Other times I've been guided to go to a museum or just get in my car and take a drive. And it's interesting the thoughts that just pop in my head on that drive. So you carve this time aside, you wait to be led, you follow the impulse, follow the idea, and you might head off in a direction and suddenly it doesn't feel right. So then you stop, assess, change direction, head somewhere else. Where are you being called to now? Remembering that this is all just practice. It's all just for fun. And just see what happens. See where you're led. See what ideas pop in your head. Maybe you just get rest. Maybe you just renew your spirit. And maybe you don't go anywhere. Maybe you decide to take a nap. And in taking that nap, you feel restored and renewed, and you can run even faster than you could have if you would have just kept running. Well, that's it for this episode. So this is your host and friend, Daniel Denovi, urging you to follow your bliss. Live your life from inner signals. That's what this is all about. Be inner directed as you live the epic adventure.